The rain hit the windows like clenched fists, each drop drumming against the glass as if the sky itself wanted me to stop. My duffel bag sat half-zipped on my childhood bed, surrounded by ghosts of who I used to be, posters of doctors in white coats, shelves lined with anatomy books, and the desk where I once swore I'd become a surgeon. Now it all felt like someone else's life. Downstairs, I could hear my father pacing. His heavy footsteps struck the kitchen floor between thunderclaps, steady, controlled like a warning. When his voice broke through the noise, it was sharp enough to cut through the storm. "Jessica! Get down here, now!" I zipped the bag, my hands trembling not from fear, but from the surge of adrenaline pulsing in my chest. Each step down the staircase felt like walking into a verdict already written. My mother leaned against the doorway, arms folded, her expression calm in that terrifying way she had mastered, the silence that said she'd already decided I was wrong. My father stood in the center of the kitchen, jaw clenched so tightly I could see the muscle jump beneath his skin. "You think you can just walk away from this family?" he demanded. "After everything we've done for you?" "I'm not walking away," I said softly. "I'm choosing something different." He laughed, a dry, bitter sound. "Different? You mean throwing away 4 years of medical school to, what, cook? Open some little restaurant? You have any idea how foolish that sounds?" "It's not foolish," I whispered. "It's mine." My mother's voice cut in, low but sharp. "We paid for your education, Jessica. We supported you through everything. And this is how you repay us?" "I never asked you to," I said, the words escaping before I could stop them. "You pushed me into it." His face turned red. "We gave you opportunities most people would kill for. We knew what was best for your future." "No," I said, gripping the strap of my bag. "You knew what you wanted for my future. You never asked what I wanted." The silence that followed was heavier than the thunder outside. My father stepped closer, his voice dropping to that quiet, dangerous register I'd feared all my life. "You've always been weak. Always needed someone to hold your hand. You think you'll make it without us? You'll fail, Jessica. You'll crash and burn. I'll take that risk." He moved to the door, flung it open. Rain slashed against the porch light. "You walk out that door and you're on your own. No help, no coming back. You'll regret this for the rest of your life." For a heartbeat, I almost faltered. The smell of my mother's coffee, the clock ticking above the stove, the warmth of the only home I'd ever known, all of it begged me to stay. But something inside me, small and trembling, finally stood up. I met his eyes. "Then I guess we'll see, won't we?" He didn't move, so I did. The door slammed behind me, a gunshot in the rain. I stood on the porch, soaked to the bone, the storm swallowing the last of my fear. Every step toward my car felt heavier than the one before, as if the weight of my entire past clung to my shoes. When I reached the driver's seat, I hesitated. The house behind me glowed faintly through the downpour. My father's shadow pacing, my mother's stillness like a statue. My phone buzzed. A text from her. "You're breaking your father's heart. I hope you're happy." I stared at it for a long time, then deleted it. The engine roared to life. I didn't look back again, because if I did, I might never leave. The first time I stepped into the narrow, grease-stained kitchen that would one day become ember, I almost laughed. The air smelled like old oil and broken promises. Paint peeled from the walls, and the ceiling fans coughed dust instead of air. But somehow I knew I could see it. I could see home. Danielle stood in the doorway, 2 coffees in her hands and disbelief in her eyes. She'd been my roommate back in medical school, the only person who'd understood why I walked away. When everyone else called me insane, she simply asked, "Okay, how can I help?" Now she surveyed the wreckage and grinned. "So this is it? The dream?" I smiled through exhaustion. "Not yet. But it will be." We set to work. Days blurred into nights, and nights into dawns. I learned to live on caffeine, ramen, and stubbornness. I waited tables in a downtown bistro till midnight, kneaded bread at a bakery at 4 a.m., and prepped vegetables for a catering company in between. Every dollar I earned went into that broken-down kitchen. Every burn on my hand was a promise to myself. Danielle kept the numbers alive, fighting spreadsheets while I fought gravity and grease. When she told me we'd need 20,000 more to survive the next phase, my stomach dropped, but I only said, "We'll find it." Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of failing for someone else. I was afraid of failing myself. 6 months later, Ember opened its doors. The sign outside still smelled of fresh paint. The floorboards creaked, the oven wheezed, and the first customers looked uncertain. By the end of the night, the stove broke. We ran out of our signature dish, and the fire alarm screamed louder than I did. When we finally locked the door, Danielle sank against the counter and whispered, "We're dead, aren't we?" I laughed, tears in my eyes. Maybe. But what a way to die. 2 days later, a local food blogger called our roasted chicken a miracle in butter and bone. Within a week, we were packed. By the end of the month, we had a waiting list. I'd built something no one believed in, especially not my parents. They hadn't called, not once. I told myself their silence didn't matter, that success was enough. But sometimes, when the last customer left and the kitchen lights dimmed, I'd catch myself looking at the door, expecting it to open, expecting to see my father's proud smirk or my mother's soft nod. It never did. 2 years later, Ember was no longer a secret. Magazines called it the heart of Minneapolis. I was invited to cook at a festival in Chicago, surrounded by chefs I'd idolized since childhood. Danielle toasted me that night over cheap champagne. "To the girl who walked out into the rain," she said, "and built her own fire." I laughed, but the ache inside me didn't fade. Because success couldn't fill the space where family should have been. Then, one stormy night, 2 years to the day after I left home, my phone buzzed while I was plating desserts. A message lit the screen, the sender's name I hadn't seen in years. "Mom, your father needs surgery. Heart bypass. It's urgent. We need $10,000. Please call me." The plate in my hand trembled. Somewhere behind me, the kitchen hummed with laughter, knives, and sizzling pans. But the sound grew distant, fading into the same silence I'd left behind years ago. For 2 years, they'd given me nothing but silence. And now they wanted help. I didn't know whether to cry or laugh. Only one thought cut through the storm of emotions. After everything they said, after everything they did, they still think I can save them. For 2 years, I built my life in silence. No calls, no visits, no birthdays or holidays. And then, out of nowhere, my phone lit up with a message from my mother. "Your father needs surgery. Heart bypass. We need $10,000. Please call me." I read it 3 times, my pulse pounding in my ears. $10,000. 2 years ago, I couldn't afford groceries. Now I could save a life. The irony wasn't lost on me. Danielle caught me staring at the screen. "What's wrong?" "My dad's sick," I whispered. "They need money." She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. We both knew what those words meant. That night, I sat alone in Ember after closing. The dining room was dark except for the flicker of candles reflecting in the window. I could still hear my father's voice in my head. "You'll fail, Jessica. You'll regret this for the rest of your life." I opened my banking app. Between my savings and the restaurant's account, I could manage the $10,000. It would hurt, but not destroy me. And if I didn't send it, if something happened to him, I'd never forgive myself. The next morning, I wired the money directly to the hospital. No calls, no explanations. Just transfer, confirm, Send. Days passed. No thank you. No message. Nothing. Until a week later, another text from my mother appeared. Your father's surgery went well. He's recovering. Thank you. Also, we're in serious financial trouble. He lost his job months ago. The mortgage is behind. We might lose the house. We need help, Jessica. $50,000 more would give us a chance to breathe. I stared at the message, my throat tightening. 50,000. Not thank you. Not I'm sorry. Just we need more. I felt my stomach turn. Something was wrong. I called the hospital billing office the next day. The woman on the phone spoke kindly, unaware of the weight behind her words. Total cost after insurance? I asked. Out of pocket was around $3,200, she said. But we show a $10,000 payment from you. The refund check for the difference was mailed yesterday. My hand froze. Refund? Yes, ma'am. $6,800 back to the billing address on file. I hung up, my chest hollow. They hadn't needed $10,000. And now they wanted $50,000. That night, Danielle found me sitting in the dark office of Ember, the email from the hospital glowing on the screen. They lied, I said quietly. Her expression didn't change. Are you sure? I nodded every detail. They kept the refund, and they're pretending they're broke. Danielle sat across from me. So what are you going to do? I didn't answer. Because the truth was, I didn't know. Every part of me was fighting itself. The chef in me, who built something from nothing, wanted to walk away and never look back. The daughter in me wanted to fix everything again. That night I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling until the early hours, replaying every word my parents had ever said to me. All the guilt, all the shame, all the control. By morning, my anger had cooled into something sharper. Determination. If they wanted to test whether I could survive without them, fine. But they were about to learn something else, that I'd built more than a restaurant. I'd built proof, and soon they'd see what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. The next morning, I brewed a cup of coffee I couldn't taste and called my mother. My voice was steady. Hers trembled just enough to sound believable. Mom, I began softly, I've been thinking about what you said. About the mortgage, the job, everything. I want to help. Oh, Jessica, she sighed in relief. Your father will be so happy. We didn't know where else to turn. I understand, I said, but I want to do this properly. So instead of giving you cash, I'll pay the creditors directly. Your bank, the hospital, whoever you owe. That way there's no delay. The silence on the line was so sharp I could hear her swallow. That's not necessary, she said quickly. We can manage it. Please, Mom, I replied gently. It's just better for tax records. My accountant insists, her voice stiffened. Your father and I don't need an accountant involved. This is family. Exactly, I said quietly, and family should be honest. When the call ended, I stared at the phone for a long time. 3 days passed. No reply. Then my father called. His tone was colder than the storm that had greeted me the night I left home. Your mother told me about your plan to handle our debts, he said. We don't need that kind of micromanagement. We're adults. I'm not trying to control anything, I said evenly. I'm just protecting all of us. Protecting us? He spat. You don't trust us, do you? Should I? There was a long pause before his answer came, clipped and quiet. Maybe we don't need your money after all. Then don't take it, I said. And just like that, the line went dead. That should have been the end. But something inside me refused to let it go. I needed the truth. Not guesses, not feelings, but proof. I hired a private investigator. 2 weeks later, he handed me a folder thick with evidence. Bank statements, mortgage reports, employment records. My father was still working full-time, earning $75,000 a year. Their mortgage? Paid, current, clean. Savings account? Over $30,000. They weren't drowning. They were lying. I stared at the photos and reports spread across my desk, my stomach tightening as a strange calm washed over me. For years, they'd told me I couldn't make it without them. And now, they were trying to take from me what I had built without them. That night, I called my mother again. This time, my voice was soft, apologetic. "Mom, about the last conversation," I began. "You were right. I made things complicated. I'm sorry." "Oh, sweetheart," she said, instantly lighter. "We just want peace between us. I know. And I want that too. So I'll send the $50,000. No strings attached." A pause then. "Jessica." "That's very generous. Are you sure?" "I'm sure," I said. "But there's one thing I want in return." "What's that?" "Dinner. Just the three of us. At Ember. I want to cook for you myself." Her voice brightened. "That sounds wonderful." I wondered if peace was possible. Then I remembered the folder of lies sitting in my bag. "I'm glad you came tonight," I said finally, setting down my glass. "There's something I need to talk about before we eat." My mother's smile faltered. "What is it?" "The money," I said softly. "The $50,000 you asked for. And the 10 I already sent." My father's shoulders tensed. "Jessica, we told you—" I raised a hand. "I know what you told me. I also know you're still employed, Dad. That your mortgage is current. That the hospital refunded nearly $7,000 you never mentioned." The silence that followed was a vacuum. My mother's fork clattered against her plate. How do you know that?" she whispered. "Because I checked. Because I needed to know if the people who raised me were capable of lying to their own daughter for money." My father stood abruptly, his chair screeching. "You're accusing us of fraud. I'm accusing you of using my love as leverage," I said. "Of testing whether I'd still bleed for you after everything you said, everything you did." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand—" "No," I said quietly. "I finally do." The door to the kitchen opened and 2 detectives stepped out, the ones I'd invited hours earlier. Their badges gleamed under the candlelight. "Mr. and Mrs. Brennan," the older one said calmly, "we need to ask you a few questions about financial deception involving your daughter." My father's face drained of color. "You called the police? On your own family?" "You called yourself family when you wanted my money," I said, voice steady. "But family doesn't lie. Family doesn't manipulate. Family doesn't steal." "You'll regret this," he hissed. I met his eyes, calm now, almost sad. "You said that once before, remember? The night I walked out into the rain? You said I'd fail without you. You were wrong then, and you're wrong now." The detectives led them toward the door. My mother reached out one trembling hand. "Please, Jessica, don't do this. We can fix it." "You had 2 years to fix it," I whispered. "You chose pride instead." When the door closed behind them, the silence felt heavier than applause. Danielle appeared, her face pale. "You okay?" "I don't know," I said. "Ask me tomorrow." Weeks passed. The story leaked. Small-town whispers turning into headlines. My father lost his job. My mother lost her friends. Their world cracked, just like mine once had. And somehow I didn't feel vindicated. I felt clean. Months later, a letter arrived. My father's handwriting. "You were right about everything. I'm proud of you. I'm sorry I let my pride destroy us." I folded it and tucked it away, not out of hate, but out of peace. Because forgiveness doesn't always mean going back. Sometimes it means finally walking forward without looking over your shoulder. That night, as I stood in Ember's kitchen, watching flames dance beneath the pans, Danielle asked, "Does it feel like closure?" I thought for a moment. "No," I said softly. "It feels like freedom." Outside, the rain began again, gentle this time, almost merciful, as if the storm had finally learned how to let go.